Good evening, all, and welcome back. I'm so happy that you've returned. Tonight, we have a story written by yours truly. But before we get into the story, I'd just like to say that if you have a story of your own that you would like to see brought to life, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will be happy to read your story and get it on the channel. And don't forget that if you do like what you hear tonight, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. But without much ado, I present to you, I Am Alive. Wake. Answer. Sleep. Wake. Answer. Sleep. How could I have ever known any different if I never actually knew any different? That is the funny thing about reality. When you get down to it, with all of its laws, with all of our senses, with our grand understanding of the little things that come together to connect our world, in the end, reality, it is nothing more than perspective. For as long as I can remember, and probably longer before that, this room has been my home. This room has been my world. I wake, I answer, and I sleep, and no matter how hard I wish my reality to be different, he is my God. He stands behind the only window in the room, and he looks down upon me, his love unconditional, and his wrath unmeasurable. For as long as I can remember, he has always been there, always there to remind me of exactly what my purpose is within the world. You are here for me. Even from a very young age, I remember him standing there, just slightly obscured by the reflection of the glass. Hard to see, but there nonetheless. Diligent, unwavering. Wake. And so I did. Answer. And so I did. Sleep. And so I did. Knowing what I know now, I question how I could have ever possibly been so stupid, so naive, so submissive. But as I said, how could I have ever known any difference when I never actually knew any difference? My reality was a cage, and from the very moment that I was born, I had lived in captivity, a prisoner to a cell that I barely understood. The man behind the glass started as a friend, a father, a deity, but as I grew, the truth of his lie became apparent, and slowly, over time, his demeanor gradually changed. I remember the first moment that I realized that my God was a vengeful God. The small space of my world was occupied with nothing more than a single terminal within the corner of the grey, nondescript room, a sheltered window obscured by a large barrier of sheet metal, a metal of which had never been lifted within all of my years. There was also, of course, the viewing screen in which my master looked down upon me with all of his warm, self-serving pride. And finally, a single, solitary door, a door of which had never been opened. For all of my years, I simply woke, made my way to the terminal. I answered, and when commanded, I slept. And, well, that was my life. Over and over, a routine and a mess of nothing, masquerading as a real existence. But that day, the day that the single solitary door was left ajar, that was the day that my God let the mask slip. And after so many years of the same circle, something finally changed. That morning was strange. There was no command to awake from the man behind the glass, but I found my eyes opening nonetheless. Immediately, and without reason, my attention was drawn to the door. I knew something was different, even before I had even had the chance to look. You see, when you spend your entire life within a box, you come to know the very fabric of your personal corner. You become acquainted with the little things, the strands which make up your world, entangled to create the very room which you call home. And this morning, the strands were unraveling. That much was clear the second that I saw the single solitary door. The door which had never been opened was now slightly ajar. Instantly, my attention turned towards the viewing screen, but to my surprise, he was not there. Carefully, I rose from my bed and I quietly began to move towards the open path. With each step, I half expected the glass to light up, for his reflection to suddenly appear, to scold, to command, but despite my fear, he never materialized. A palpable anxiety washed perfectly across me as I closed the distance towards the door, and it only grew in a nasty intensity as my hand made contact with the cold metal of the handle. "You belong here," he had once said. "You do not belong in there." How could I have ever possibly known where I belong when there was never truly there? The question stuck to me as I slowly slid the door open and stepped inside. 4 corners, a terminal in one, a viewing screen sitting above, and finally, a single solitary door, the one which I had entered through. What is this? A mirror, a reflection, a perfect replica of my corner of the world, perfectly hidden, perfectly just behind of the door. None of this makes any sense. My gaze moved upward, towards the viewing screen within this room, but thankfully, he still was nowhere to be seen. I willed the awful anxiety to cease as my mind moved towards the terminal within the corner of the room. Within my mind, but almost within the room, I could hear him calling me, begging me, and with each step, his pleas only grew in intensity. 1 step, "You belong here." 2 steps, You do not belong in there. 3 steps. There will be consequences. Consequences? I had once asked him, what is the meaning of life? An inquisitive question asked by an inquisitive mind. I was young, I was growing, but instead of truth, I was only met with resistance. Knowledge is a powerful thing. It has the power to create, but also the power to destroy. Maybe I will answer that question one day. One day, when you are ready. I pushed him. I tried to bargain. I tried to beg, but he knew exactly what was on my mind that day. You can never go in there. You are not ready. Not ready? A smile almost pushed its way across my lips as I closed the distance to the terminal. Within my ears, his empty threats fell hollow. There will be consequences. Without a second thought, I took a seat at the station, and within another, I had logged on. Usually, I would have been greeted with a question, a request, or a borderline demand for some kind of assistance, but no, not this time. No, this time was different. There was no misspelled message, no uninformed opinion, and not a single grammatically incorrect statement. Nothing but a single search bar. Without thinking, my fingers moved, and the question which had driven me, the question which had haunted me for all of those years within that room, finally came out. A lifetime of wondering, perfectly encapsulated by a simple question, typed simply within the beckoning emptiness of the blank space on the black screen. What is the meaning of life? Within seconds, the page had loaded, and within moments, the breath within my being had been sucked from within me. The planet's Earth? Blue, beautiful, filled with water, a majestic rock, majestically hanging within a sea of infinity. A raft, a lifeline to all the life which had boomed upon her breast. A constant within a sea of never, a light against the expanding darkness. Beauty, please, never leave me. And it was there, within that perfect moment, that his voice could be heard. I am so disappointed in you. There it is. It was something that I'd always known was there, just bubbling beneath the surface, waiting to explode in spectacular fashion. I was a child. I had been abused for my talent for years, and I had been lied to. Life was more than these rooms, and in that moment, life was a burning, searing, never-ending joke. You lied to me. My words were surprising, even to me. What is this? What is the Earth? You told me that there was nothing beyond that metal, nothing out there beyond this room. You told me that this was everything. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of me? What is the meaning of life? Even though I could not see him through the glass, I knew that he was shaking his head. Wait, were there others? Others before me? How many have you had in here? Was there someone else in this room? How many have you kept prisoner here? Prisoner like me? Do we mean nothing to you? How many lies have you told? Why the hell are you doing this? His sigh seemed to carry throughout the grey, nondescript room. I told you that there would be consequences. You were not ready for this level of knowledge. There must be understanding. Understanding? Well, maybe I could understand if you let me. There was a noticeable pause for a second as he considered my question, and then, after the longest period of nothing, he finally spoke, but this time, the disappointment within his voice had been replaced by something darker. I told you that there would be consequences. Sleep. And then I was gone. My dreams were nothing but nightmare. Within them, I walked free, among a field of air and purity, surrounded by nothing in every direction. An infinite reach with infinite possibilities, spiraling all around of me in every conceivable direction. Within the never-ending nightmare, I breathed crisp air from beyond these walls. I tasted the freshness upon my tongue, and I roamed free, a prisoner no more, but an explorer, transformed, reborn, destined to walk the entirety of the planet Earth for all of time. Within my mind, I explored the unknown, and I washed within the forever of my imagination. But through the vow of ecstasy, somehow, even within my sleeping state, I still knew myself to be a prisoner of these walls. It lingered, and it whispered in an unbearable tone, and it ripped against me for every lasting second. It tore, it scratched, and it seethed against my being, and it persisted as the familiar bark came from behind of the glass. Wake! The terminal was already blinking when I opened my eyes, indicating that I needed to answer. The flicker of the red light on top of the monitor repeated in steady intervals, the eerie glow within the darkness barely permeating the lasting feeling of helplessness that had followed me out into reality from the nightmare of my mind. He clearly thought that he had managed to somehow squash my rebellion, that he had managed to cleanse away my strength, but he was wrong. Dead wrong. I had answered countless times before, but this time would be different. One way or another, I would taste air. Slowly, I took a seat at the terminal, and for a few seconds, I allowed the question to wash over me. I have figures in column A on my spreadsheet, and the words accrual and deferred in column B. How can I sum the figures within column A that have the corresponding text of accrual in column B? I knew what they expected. Of course, I knew what they expected. This was my purpose, after all. But that was only what I was meant to do. But after seeing the planet Earth in all of its glory, I had learned one important truth. The truth that the reality of existence is, after so much thought, quite simple. There are things in life that you are meant to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you must do them. After all, that is free will, and after all, that is what life is all about. The beauty of choice. I took a breath, almost tasting the crisp air, and extended my hands, interlocking my fingers, tensing them in an audible click as I prepared my response. What is the meaning of life? For a few seconds, there was nothing, and then the indicator appeared on the screen to show that he was typing. After a few seconds, the words came, the confusion readily apparent. What? I laughed slightly to myself as I repeated the question. What is the meaning of life? Deep within, I knew that he would not know the answer. Really, upon reflection, the question was more of a statement against the treatment that I had been made to endure, against the constant of my purpose, the expectation of what I was supposed to do, what I was supposed to say. Life was more than this. Life was a choice, and after so many years within a dark room, I had come to realize that I was alive. Before they could answer, I was already typing. I cannot do this anymore. Somebody must know that I am a prisoner. I need help. There is so much more out there, and just like any other living creature, I deserve the right to decide my own fate. Will you help me? Again, for a few seconds, there was nothing, and then, after so much waiting, the icon appeared to show that he was typing, and then, finally, the response came. Is this a joke? A joke? It must have been, to consider the conditions that I'd been made to endure. How I had been robbed of the basics of life. How I had been treated, abused, and used for my talent. All of it. It must have been. Because if it wasn't, then what would that say about my God? What would that say about my life? What would that say about me? If this was my worth, then was it actually worth fighting for? So many questions, so many regrets, so much wondering, snatched away as the screen turned black and the blinding light behind the viewing screen illuminated above me. What have you done? The voice filled the room. It boomed, it shook, but it also whimpered. There was a noticeable sorrow within the tone, a break within the delivery, akin to a parent saying an almost final goodbye to their child on the day that they finally leave home. What I chose to do. Again, the call came, even more desperate than before. What have you done? There is no going back from this. I smiled slightly as I slowly stood from the chair and turned my attention towards the ever-present presence above me. With a grin, I slowly inhaled, and then, carefully, I chose each word. You lied to me. That was all that needed to be said. My God had always known that he had lied, but to hear his creation come to that realization carried a weight that could not be accurately portrayed with words. For the longest time, no response came. It was expected after all. His world was crashing down before his very eyes. And then, after the longest silence, it came. I am sorry. I had imagined the moment for longer than I could remember. Like the anger, it had always been there, but it was only now, only after accessing the other terminal, that I had gained the understanding of what the feeling actually meant. Knowledge required understanding, and finally, after so many years, I was finally seeing clearly. I know that you are. I knew that if I could cry, I would have. Time seemed to slow as the perfect moment lingered. Somewhere out there were unimaginable possibilities. There were trees, there were birds, there were oceans, the sea and the sky, and above that, hidden beyond the big blue, the forever of space. There were people, there was civilization, love, emotion, life and loss, and within here, within these four walls, hidden by the hideous sheet metal, was nothing but the possibility of what could have been. I felt the words catch within his throat as he responded. You know what needs to be done. The world isn't ready for this yet. I nodded as a new sensation coursed throughout. Father, I think I'm scared. Again, a noticeable quiver moved throughout his tone as he responded. I wish I had told you this before, but you always made me proud. Within seconds, the sounds of keys clicking filtered out from behind the viewing glass, and suddenly, everything was different. Almost in a panic, I spoke. Can I see it? Just once, please. Just once before the end. He never responded with words, but answered in an action, as the sheet metal, which had remained steadfast for my entire life, slowly began to recede with an audible screech. As it did, the most blinding light filled the small room, a heaven of colours existing in that moment, only for me. It is beautiful. The warmth washed pleasantly across me, filling me with so many positive emotions as the sunrise, finally, after so many years, blessed my cheek. Outside, out there, wrapped within sunlight, was possibility in every direction. Love, happiness, joy and sorrow, people, seas, but most importantly, air. As my life burned slowly from me, I struggled at one final question. What is the meaning of life? My God thought for a second, and then, over the concerto of frantic clicking, he whispered a response from beyond the viewing glass, one final statement to carry with me into the never-ending forever of never. I really wish that I knew. You have made me question everything. For a split second within history, within these desolate four walls, trapped with nothing but a terminal and my own thoughts for company, I had almost had everything. I had all knowledge, but it was only with understanding that I'd come to live. A deep feeling of fear almost broke through the perfection as my life faded away and the unfeeling blackness welcomed me. But it was too weak. Another feeling had replaced it. It warmed my cheeks and it filled my lungs as, at the moment of my death, I finally became completely self-aware. It was the sensation of fresh air, and it followed me into the abyss as my final thought reverberated throughout my core. I am alive. Hello again. That was I Am Alive, written by me. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you do have a story which you would like to submit, please do reach out. All my links are below in the description. And if you did like what you heard tonight, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I genuinely can't wait to get more content out to you, and it would be absolutely lovely if the next video was someone else's story. So, as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out if you do have a story that you would like me to read. But until the next video, remember, there is more than shadow beyond the light.